The wind screamed across the white mountains like a living thing. Snow swirled in the air, turning the world into a wall of white. Ethan Cole pushed forward, leaning against the storm. His thermal suit beeped a warning, temperature dropping fast. He was used to it. 3 years working in the Arctic had taught him how to survive anything. But that night, the storm felt different. It wasn't just cold. It felt alive. His hoversled moved slowly, the scanner flickering on his wrist. He was heading back to the main station after checking the old satellite relay. Nothing out there but ice, wind, and silence. Then, the silence broke. A weak signal flashed on his scanner. 2 life signs. Faint. Human-like. Ethan frowned. "No way," he muttered. The nearest outpost was 60 miles away. He turned the sled toward the signal. The storm grew thicker. Visibility dropped to almost 0. He followed the scanner's pulse until he saw something dark lying in the snow, 2 shapes half buried under ice. Ethan jumped off the sled, boots sinking deep into the snow. He brushed the ice away and froze in shock. They were girls, young women, pale as frost, wearing strange, torn silver suits that shimmered under the stormlight. Their hair was white as snow, their skin almost glowing faintly blue. Ethan touched one of their necks. A heartbeat, slow but there. The other was colder, but still alive. "Hang on. I've got you," he said. He lifted the first one into his arms. She was light, too light. The second he carried over his shoulder. He had to hurry, they would freeze to death in minutes. He loaded them onto his sled, covering them with a thermal blanket. The scanner beeped again, but now it showed something else. A distortion. A strange energy wave moving across the snow, heading toward him. Ethan's instincts screamed run. He powered the sled and sped off into the storm. Half an hour later, he reached his cabin, a small research shelter built into the side of a frozen ridge. The wind howled outside as he dragged the 2 women inside. He placed them near the heater and checked their vitals again. Their heartbeats were slow but steady. Their skin had strange markings, thin glowing lines like circuitry under the surface. "What are you 2?" he whispered. He started removing their frozen clothing to check for frostbite. The material was like nothing he had seen, soft but metallic, warm to the touch. He wrapped them in blankets, trying to get their temperature up. Then one of them suddenly gasped. Ethan jumped. Her eyes opened. They were silver, not gray, not blue, silver, like molten metal reflecting firelight. She looked at him, confused, afraid. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice soft and trembling. "You're safe," Ethan said quickly. "I found you in the snow. You were freezing." She tried to sit up but winced in pain. Her skin flickered, the glowing lines pulsing faintly. Ethan stared, unsure what he was seeing. The girl looked toward the window, panic in her eyes. You shouldn't have brought us here." "Why not?" Ethan asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They'll come." "Who?" Before she could answer, the second girl coughed and woke up. She looked even younger, maybe 16. Her hair was longer, her face soft but strange, her pupils almost glowing faint blue. She grabbed her sister's hand tightly. The older one whispered, "Sarah, it's all right. We're safe, for now." Ethan tried to keep calm. "Okay. I don't know what's going on, but I need to call the station. You both need medical help." He turned to his comms unit, and froze. No signal. The screen was full of static, then dark. He checked the power grid, everything was fine. Then the lights flickered, once, twice. The heater made a strange humming sound. The younger girl, Sarah, flinched. "They're close," she said quietly. "I can feel them." Ethan grabbed his jacket and walked to the small window. Through the storm, faint blue lights were moving, not like vehicle lights, but floating, scanning the snow. "Search drones," he whispered. But the shapes were wrong, tall, thin silhouettes moving in the wind, glowing faintly. He stepped back, locking the door. His heart pounded in his chest. "Who are they?" he asked, turning to the girls. The older one met his eyes. "Hunters." The word hung in the air like a curse. "What do they want?" Her answer was quiet, almost a whisper. "Us." And now, you. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't believe in aliens or monsters. But the evidence was right in front of him: glowing skin, strange suits, silver eyes, and something outside that definitely wasn't human. He checked his plasma cutter, the closest thing to a weapon he had, and took a deep breath. The storm outside grew louder, but beneath it, there was something else. A deep humming sound. Mechanical. Heavy. Getting closer. The older sister looked at the door, her voice shaking. "They've found us." Ethan's pulse raced. He aimed the cutter at the door. The lights flickered again. Then, thud. Something knocked on the metal door, 3 slow, heavy knocks. Ethan froze. The 2 sisters stared in fear. Another knock. Louder this time. And then, silence. Only the sound of the storm outside. But Ethan knew one thing for sure. Whatever was out there wasn't human. The wind screamed outside, but inside the small cabin, everything was still. Ethan stood frozen, his plasma cutter aimed at the door. His breath came out in short clouds of mist. The 2 pale sisters sat huddled together by the heater, their wide, silver and blue eyes locked on the entrance. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then came another sound, not a knock this time, but a low humming that made the floor vibrate. Ethan whispered, "What is that?" Lyra, the older sister, looked terrified. "They're scanning," she said softly. "They can sense heat, energy, life. How do I stop them?" "You can't," she replied. "You hide. You pray they lose the trail." Ethan turned off the heater instantly. The warm air vanished, replaced by the cold bite of the Arctic wind. His breath froze in the air as he moved to the power switch and killed the lights. The cabin dropped into near darkness, lit only by a faint glow from the sisters' strange skin. The humming outside moved closer, passing along the wall. Ethan peeked through a crack in the frosted window. Through the swirling snow, he saw them, tall, thin shadows moving on long metallic legs. Their bodies shimmered faint blue under the storm. Each carried something like a staff that pulsed with energy. He whispered, "Not human." Sarah, the younger one, trembled. "They will smell our trail. They can't stop until they find us." "Then we move," Ethan said quickly. "No." Lyra grabbed his arm. "Outside is death. The storm will kill you before they do." Ethan's heart pounded. "So what, we just wait here to die?" Lyra stared at the door, her voice tight. "Sometimes, hiding is the only way to live." The cabin creaked as something brushed against the outer wall. The snow around the window glowed blue for a second, a scanning beam. Ethan ducked low, his hand gripping the plasma cutter. The beam swept across the door, then faded. The humming grew fainter as the shapes outside moved away. Minutes passed. Then silence returned. Sarah let out a shaky breath. "They're gone." Ethan stood up slowly, still listening. Nothing. Only the storm. He turned the heater back on and exhaled in relief. "Okay," he said quietly. "You two need to start explaining what's going on. Who are you really?" Lyra hesitated, glancing at her sister. "We are not from your world," she said finally. "Our people were explorers, like yours once were. But our ship crashed, and they came after us." Ethan frowned. "Those things? Hunters?" Lyra nodded. "They were created to track and destroy life that carries our energy signature. They don't stop. They don't think. They only follow orders." "Who gave them those orders?" She looked down. "Our own kind." That hit him like a punch. "Wait, you're saying your people sent them? To kill you?" Lyra's voice was low. "We disobeyed. We refused to let them use other species for testing. We ran, and now they call us traitors." Ethan stared at her, unsure what to say. The storm outside roared again, shaking the cabin walls. He sat down beside the small heater, rubbing his forehead. "So I saved 2 fugitives from another world," he muttered. "Great." Lyra looked at him. "You didn't have to save us. But now, because you did, you are part of this." Ethan met her silver eyes. There was sadness there, and something else, fear mixed with guilt. Then Sarah suddenly gasped, clutching her head. Blue light flickered under her skin again. "They're coming back," she whispered. "They know we're still alive." Ethan stood instantly. "How?" "She's linked to them," Lyra said. "They can feel her energy when it spikes. We must leave before they lock on." Ethan grabbed his coat and tools. "There's an old mine tunnel half a mile east. If we make it there, we can block the entrance." Lyra nodded. "Then we run." He helped both sisters up. They moved fast, stepping into the raging storm. The wind tore at their clothes, snow biting their skin. Behind them, the cabin lights flickered once, then died as the power failed completely. They pushed forward through the snow, half blind, the storm howling like a monster. Lyra leaned on Ethan's shoulder, her strength fading. Sarah stumbled but kept moving. Then, a sound. A sharp metallic cry behind them. Ethan looked back. Through the snow, a bright blue light cut across the sky, a drone searching the ground. "Go!" he shouted. They ran, feet slipping on the ice, breath short and burning. The drone beam passed only a few meters away, scanning the snow. Ethan dove behind a ridge, pulling the sisters with him. They lay there, silent, the storm covering them like a blanket. The light hovered, then moved away. Lyra whispered, "You're lucky, human." "Yeah," Ethan muttered, "I get that a lot." They crawled toward the dark mouth of the tunnel, finally reaching it. Inside, the air was still and quiet. The walls glowed faintly from frozen crystals. Ethan helped them sit against the wall. "You'll be safe here for now." Lyra looked up at him. "Why are you helping us?" He shrugged. "Because I couldn't just leave you to die out there. That's not what humans do." Lyra's eyes softened. "Then maybe humanity still has hope." Ethan smiled faintly. But before he could speak, a faint vibration shook the tunnel floor. Sarah's eyes widened. "They found us again." Ethan turned toward the tunnel mouth. Outside, blue light filled the storm once more. And through the blinding snow, the shadow of something massive moved closer, a ship descending from the sky. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the light grew brighter. Ethan gripped his plasma cutter, his pulse racing. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra whispered, "The hunters, they've called their ship." The storm outside exploded with blue lightning. The tunnel shook as the ship descended outside. Dust and frost fell from the ceiling, and the ground rumbled beneath their boots. Ethan pressed his hand against the wall to stay steady. "What kind of ship is that?" he asked. Lyra's silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "A hunter vessel," she said. "They travel between worlds. Their sensors can find us even underground." Ethan cursed under his breath. "So nowhere is safe." "For now, maybe," she said. "But not for long." The storm outside had grown wilder, lit by flashes of blue lightning that weren't natural. The air carried a low hum that made Ethan's teeth ache. He crawled toward the tunnel entrance and peeked out. Through the blowing snow, he saw it, a huge, dark ship floating above the ground. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, with sharp edges that shifted and twisted. Around it, strange drones floated silently, scanning the area. Then he saw something worse. One of the drones stopped directly above the trail they had left in the snow. It pulsed blue. "They found the track," Ethan whispered. He rushed back inside. "They're coming this way. We have to move now." Sarah, still weak, struggled to stand. Her small frame shook with cold. Ethan lifted her gently, supporting her with one arm. Lyra placed her hand against the wall. The ice under her fingers glowed faintly. "There's another way," she said. "This tunnel connects to the old mining road. If we can reach it, we might lose them." Ethan nodded. "Then lead the way." They moved deeper into the tunnel. The air grew colder and the light dimmer. The only illumination came from Lyra's faint glow and Ethan's small wrist torch. Their footsteps echoed softly in the frozen corridor. For a few minutes, everything was quiet, only the sound of their breathing and the distant roar of the storm above. Then Sarah stopped suddenly. "Wait," she whispered. Ethan froze. "What is it?" "I can hear them," she said. Her eyes glowed brighter. "They're inside the ground now." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the wall beside them cracked, a loud metallic noise echoing through the tunnel. A thin blue beam shot through the ice, melting it like butter. "They're breaking in," Lyra shouted. Ethan pulled Sarah behind a large rock and pointed his plasma cutter at the wall. A section of the tunnel exploded, and out stepped a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall, armored in silver plates that reflected the blue light. Its head had no eyes, only a single glowing line across the front. It carried a long weapon that hummed with energy. It scanned the tunnel once, and turned toward them. Ethan fired his plasma cutter. The beam hit the creature's chest, sparking bright light, but it didn't fall. The alien staggered back, then raised its weapon. Before it could fire, Lyra stepped forward and held up her hand. The markings on her skin glowed brighter, and the air shimmered around her. The creature froze, its armor vibrating. Then with a sharp crack, it shattered into pieces, collapsing in a burst of blue sparks. Ethan stared in disbelief. "You did that?" Lyra's breathing was heavy. "It takes energy," she said weakly. "Too much." Sarah held her sister's arm, her own eyes wide with fear. "They'll send more. That one was only a scout." Ethan helped Lyra up. "Then let's get out of here before round 2 shows up." They hurried down the tunnel, running as fast as they could. The hum of the ship above grew louder. The air began to vibrate again. When they finally reached the end of the tunnel, Ethan saw a faint light ahead, the exit. He pushed forward, bursting out into the open night. The snowstorm had eased slightly, but the sky was full of glowing clouds from the hunter ship. They were standing on the edge of a frozen cliff that looked down over a wide valley. In the distance, Ethan could see the shadow of his cabin, now burning. Blue fire licked at the roof, and drones hovered around it. "They found your home," Lyra said softly. Ethan clenched his fists. "That was everything I had." Lyra looked at him. "I'm sorry." He took a deep breath and shook his head. "It doesn't matter. Right now, we survive." But then he noticed something in the snow near his feet, a small metallic object half buried under ice. He bent down and picked it up. It was a strange metal symbol, glowing faintly blue, shaped like a spiral with moving lines. Lyra's face went pale. "Drop it," she said quickly. "Why? What is it?" "It's a mark," she whispered. "They leave it when they claim a target." "That means—" Ethan stared at her. "That means what?" Lyra looked him in the eyes. "That means you're marked. They'll follow you now, no matter where you go." For the first time, Ethan felt a chill deeper than the cold around him. He looked at the mark glowing faintly in his hand. Suddenly, a pulse of energy spread from it, rippling through the air. The snow around them began to vibrate. Sarah screamed, "Throw it away." Ethan dropped the mark, but it was too late. The light from the object exploded upward into the sky, sending a blue signal beam into the clouds. Lyra grabbed his arm. "They know we're here." Ethan looked up, and saw more lights descending from the ship, fast. He turned to run, pulling the sisters with him, snow spraying behind their feet. The roar of engines grew louder. Then the ground shook violently, and everything went white as a blinding flash lit the night. When Ethan opened his eyes again, the ship was gone, and Sarah was lying on the ground, her body surrounded by a faint blue glow. Her eyes snapped open, shining brighter than before. Lyra whispered in horror, "No, not now." Ethan took a step back, stunned. "What's happening to her?" Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. "She's waking up." Snow drifted through the air as the blinding blue light slowly faded. Ethan blinked, his eyes struggling to adjust. For a few seconds, everything was silent, even the wind seemed to stop. Then he heard a faint hum, deep and strange, coming from Sarah. She was kneeling in the snow, eyes wide open, glowing bright blue like 2 frozen stars. The air around her shimmered with energy. Frost on the ground melted in a perfect circle around her, steam rising into the cold air. Lyra crawled toward her sister. "Sarah, stop. You can't control it." But Sarah didn't move. Her hands trembled, light spilling from her skin like liquid electricity. The ground vibrated under her. Ethan stepped closer, his heart pounding. "What's happening to her?" Lyra's voice shook. She's connected to the core energy of our people. It's what keeps us alive, but it's unstable here. Earth's air, its gravity, everything affects it. Suddenly, a shockwave burst from Sarah's body, throwing snow and ice into the air. Ethan shielded his face as the wind howled around them. When the light dimmed, Sarah collapsed. Lyra caught her, pulling her close. Her sister's skin was pale again, the glow fading slowly. She was breathing, but weak. Lyra held her tight. She's too young. She can't handle this much energy. Ethan crouched beside them. She'll be all right. Lyra didn't answer. Her expression said enough. The sky above was quiet again. The hunter ship was gone, but not destroyed. Ethan could still feel it out there, somewhere behind the clouds, waiting. He helped Lyra carry Sarah back into the tunnel. The cold walls offered little comfort, but at least it was shelter. They laid Sarah down on Ethan's old coat. Lyra placed her hand over her sister's chest, the glowing lines on her arm flickering weakly. "Rest," she whispered. "You're safe now." Ethan watched them, his mind spinning. 2 alien sisters, hunted by machines. A ship in the sky. Energy powers that could shake the earth. And now he was part of it. He looked down at his hand. The faint glow from the mark was still there, pulsing softly under his skin. He rubbed it hard, but it didn't fade. Lyra noticed. "It's part of you now," she said quietly. Ethan frowned. "Part of me?" "It's a trace link," she explained. "When you touched the beacon mark, it bound a signal to your biosignature. They can sense it anywhere on this planet." Ethan stood, frustration building. "So I can't go home, can't call for help, and now I'm basically a walking target." Lyra's voice was calm but sad. "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "Great. Just great." Lyra looked down at her sister, then back at him. "You saved us. That means something. Where I come from, life debts are sacred." Ethan gave a small laugh. "You don't owe me anything. I just didn't want you two to die out there." Lyra smiled faintly. "And that's why you're different." The tunnel grew quiet again. The storm outside began to fade, the sound distant and soft. For the first time, Ethan felt a strange peace, but it didn't last long. Sarah stirred suddenly, her eyes opening again. She looked around, confused. "Where are we?" "In the tunnel," Lyra said softly. "You used your power again. You almost burned yourself out." Sarah blinked slowly. "I saw something. When I was glowing." "What did you see?" Ethan asked. She looked at him with those strange glowing eyes. "I saw a city, under the ice. Not human. Not ours either. It's awake." Ethan frowned. "A city? Under this snow?" Lyra's face turned pale. "That can't be." "It's real," Sarah whispered. "The hunters are heading there. They're not just looking for us, they're looking for something buried." Ethan stared at her. "Something buried." Lyra stood slowly, her expression dark. "The old ones," she said. "Ancient technology. If the hunters find it, they can control worlds." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "So that's why they're here. Not just for you, for whatever's sleeping under the ice." Lyra nodded. "And if they wake it up, your planet will die." Silence filled the tunnel. The weight of her words sank in like ice. Ethan took a deep breath. "Then we have to stop them." Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. Even our kind fear that place. It was sealed for a reason." Sarah looked at them both, her voice soft. "If we don't stop them, they'll destroy everything. We have to try." Ethan looked at the 2 sisters, exhausted, cold, terrified, and something inside him hardened. "Then we try," he said. "We fight." Lyra met his eyes, studying him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You really are human," she said softly. He gave a half smile. "You say that like it's a compliment." Outside, a distant boom echoed through the valley, deep and metallic, like thunder from underground. The ice trembled slightly beneath their feet. Ethan glanced toward the sound. What now? Lyra's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. They've started digging. Sarah's glow flickered faintly, fear showing in her face. They found the gate. Ethan grabbed his pack, his plasma cutter ready. Then we move now. Lyra stood beside him, determination in her eyes. If the hunters open that gate, not even the stars will be safe. As they stepped out into the cold night, the storm had cleared completely. The sky was filled with strange lights, not stars, but the shimmer of energy from something far bigger and older awakening beneath the ice. Ethan felt the ground rumble again. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew one thing for sure: humanity wasn't ready for it. The night sky burned with light. Ethan had seen storms, meteors, even auroras before, but nothing like this. A huge shape pushed through the clouds, glowing red and blue at once, twisting the sky around it. The hunters, Lyra whispered. Her silver eyes reflected the fire above. They've found the gate. Ethan gripped his plasma cutter tighter. Then we're out of time. The ship was massive, like a floating fortress made of living metal. Energy arced across its hull as it descended through the storm, melting the snow beneath it. Smaller drones poured from its sides, scattering in all directions like insects made of light. Sarah shivered beside her sister. Her glow was dim now, her strength fading. They'll reach the ice field in minutes, she said softly. Ethan looked toward the horizon. In the distance, a faint blue glow spread under the snow, the place where the hunters were digging. We need to stop them, he said. But how? Lyra pointed toward the east. There's an old human facility nearby. A research base. Your kind used to study energy from the poles there. If any technology can help us fight back, it's there. Ethan nodded. Then that's where we go. They started moving quickly through the snow. The storm had calmed, but the air still vibrated with energy from the ship above. Each footstep crunched loudly in the frozen silence. Ethan led the way, his wrist scanner showing a faint signal. The old base still had power. Behind him, Lyra supported Sarah, whispering softly in their strange alien language. As they walked, Ethan couldn't help glancing at them. They looked so fragile, and yet, they had faced horrors beyond anything on Earth. He wondered what it was like, being hunted across galaxies, carrying power that could burn worlds. Sarah noticed his stare. You think we are monsters, she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. No. Just different. But if you can bleed, breathe, and fear like us, you're not that different. A small smile touched her lips. Maybe that's why we found you. They reached the frozen valley after 2 long hours. Half buried under the ice stood a metal door, rusted but still intact. Faded letters above it read, Polar Outpost 12. Ethan brushed off the snow and tried the control panel. It was dead. He pried open the panel and rerouted a cable from his wrist battery. The lights flickered, then the door groaned open. Inside, the air was stale and cold. Frozen computers lined the walls. Cracked screens still showed fragments of data, temperature logs, research notes, static. Ethan powered up the main console. Let's see what we've got. Lyra and Sarah explored the room. Lyra touched one of the glowing panels. Your people were close, she said softly. They tried to study what sleeps under the ice. They even learned to channel energy, just like ours. Ethan scrolled through the logs. One file caught his eye, Project Hollow Sun, do not activate. He frowned. Sounds like trouble. Lyra stepped closer. Open it. The file revealed a schematic, a massive chamber deep beneath the ice field, exactly where the hunters were digging. At its center was a black sphere labeled Energy Core, unknown origin. Sarah whispered, that's the heart of the city I saw. Lyra's face turned pale. If they reach that core, it will wake the gate. Ethan looked up. Then we stop them. You said this base has weapons. Lyra nodded toward a sealed storage room. There. Ethan pried it open and whistled softly. Inside were several plasma rifles, old power cells, and one large cannon labeled Experimental Energy Launcher, prototype. He grinned. Now that's more like it. Lyra examined the cannon's power cell. It can overload a hunter's armor, but it will burn out after one shot. One shot's all we'll need, Ethan said. They worked fast. Ethan loaded weapons, Lyra reactivated the facility's defense shields, and Sarah connected to the base's sensor grid using her strange energy. Her skin glowed brighter as she linked with the machines. I can see them, Sarah whispered. The hunters, there are hundreds now. They're digging faster. Ethan glanced at the scanner. How far? 3 kilometers, she said. And closing. The lights flickered suddenly. A low alarm echoed through the base. Lyra's eyes widened. Something's locking onto us. A moment later, the ceiling trembled. Snow dust fell. They've found the facility. Ethan shouted. They are coming. He grabbed the cannon and aimed it at the entrance tunnel. The door glowed red as something outside began cutting through the metal. Lyra ran to Sarah. Disconnect. You can't stay linked. But Sarah shook her head. If I stop now, they'll breach faster. I can slow them. Ethan saw her skin flicker, light racing along her veins. You'll kill yourself. I already died once, she said softly. The door exploded inward. A wave of blue smoke filled the corridor. 3 hunters stepped through, tall, metallic, eyes blazing like blue fire. Ethan fired. The cannon roared, sending a beam of white light that tore through the first hunter, blowing it apart in a storm of sparks. The second one staggered, screeching with a mechanical cry. Lyra raised her hand, her own energy flaring bright. A wall of blue light slammed into the remaining hunters, freezing them in place. Ethan reloaded, breathing hard. We can't hold this forever. Lyra shouted over the noise. There's an escape tunnel under the command room. Take Sarah, I'll cover you. No way, Ethan said. We all go together. More hunters appeared in the doorway. Their weapons charged with humming power. The base lights went red. The system AI crackled to life. Warning, reactor overload in progress. Ethan's heart jumped. What did you do? Lyra gave a faint smile. I'm ending it. They won't get the core. He grabbed her arm. You'll die. She looked at him, eyes glowing bright silver. Better one world dies than all. Outside, the ship's shadow covered the valley as energy beams struck the ice. The mountain shook violently. Ethan pulled Sarah toward the escape shaft. The noise grew unbearable, metal tearing, alarms screaming, and the deep roar of the reactor rising. Lyra stayed behind, her body glowing like a star. Go, she shouted. Before it's too late. Ethan climbed into the shaft, dragging Sarah with him. The tunnel lit with white light as the reactor exploded, swallowing the facility in a blinding wave. The shockwave threw them into the snow outside. Ethan hit the ground hard. The entire mountain behind them collapsed in a roar of ice and fire. He looked back, the base was gone. Only a smoking crater remained. Beside him, Sarah whispered weakly, Lyra. Ethan stared at the burning horizon, heart heavy. We don't know if she's gone. But deep inside, he feared the truth. Then, through the smoke, a flicker of silver light appeared far above, a small pod escaping into the night sky. Ethan narrowed his eyes. She's alive. He helped Sarah stand, their breath white in the cold air. Far in the distance, the hunter ship still hovered, wounded but not destroyed. They'll come again, Sarah said quietly. Ethan nodded. Then we'll be ready. The snowstorm had passed, leaving the world silent. Smoke still rose from the crater where the research base once stood. The air smelled of burnt metal and ozone. Ethan and Sarah stood on a ridge, both exhausted and bruised. The blast had thrown them miles from the explosion site. The night sky above was filled with strange lights, pale green auroras twisting around the massive hunter ship still floating above the ice fields. She's gone, Sarah whispered, staring at the crater. Lyra sacrificed herself. Ethan's jaw tightened. No, he said. I saw something escape before the explosion. A pod, it flew north. Sarah looked up, hope flickering in her glowing eyes. You're sure? He nodded. She's alive. And I'm going to find her. They started walking again, heading toward the direction the pod had gone. The cold bit through their clothes, and the snow crunched under their boots. After hours of walking through the endless white, Ethan's wrist scanner beeped faintly. A signal, weak, but there. He stopped. There's something underground, some kind of structure. Sarah tilted her head. Maybe Lyra's pod landed there. They followed the signal to a frozen ridge where the snow seemed thinner. Ethan brushed away the ice, revealing a small metal hatch almost completely buried. He tried to pull it open, but it was frozen solid. So he used his plasma cutter. The heat sliced through the lock with a hiss. The hatch creaked open, and a rush of stale, warm air came out. Ethan looked down the dark shaft. Looks like we're going underground again. Sarah smiled weakly. Humans and tunnels, you never stop digging. He smirked. Well, neither do aliens. They climbed down carefully, landing in a narrow corridor lit by faint orange lights. Dust floated in the air. Old human technology hummed quietly around them, computers, glass panels, and strange pipes running along the walls. Ethan wiped frost off a nearby sign. Subterranean Research Division, Access Level 7. This is older than the last base, he said. It's not even on the map. Sarah ran her fingers along the wall. There's alien energy here, but it's mixed with human machines. Someone tried to merge both. Ethan frowned. You mean humans were experimenting with your kind's tech? Yes, Sarah said softly. But this feels wrong. Twisted. They moved deeper inside. The corridor opened into a large chamber filled with old equipment. In the center stood a tall, cylindrical pod covered in frost. Cables ran from it into the walls, pulsing faintly with blue light. Ethan brushed the ice from its glass window, and froze. Inside the pod lay a human figure. A woman. Her face pale but peaceful, her body floating in some kind of stasis fluid. Sarah stepped closer, her eyes wide. That's not one of ours. Ethan stared at the label on the pod. Dr. Helena Ward, lead Xenotech scientist. He whispered, she was the head of Project Hollow Sun, the one who discovered the alien energy source. Sarah tilted her head. Why is she frozen? Ethan activated the console beside the pod. The old screen flickered to life. A log file began to play, the voice of Dr. Ward. If anyone finds this message, it means the gate beneath the ice is waking up. We thought we could control it. We were wrong. The energy, it's alive. It's calling to something out there. I sealed myself in stasis until help could come. But if the hunters find me first, all of humanity will pay. The recording ended. Ethan exhaled slowly. She's been down here for decades. Sarah touched the glass. Her life signs are weak, but she's alive. We can wake her. Ethan hesitated. What if she's the reason this started? What if she brought the hunters here? Before Sarah could answer, the ground shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Ethan looked at his scanner, multiple red blips appeared. They've found us again. Sarah's eyes glowed brighter. They're tracking the core energy, it's connected to her pod. Ethan cursed under his breath. Then we have to move fast. He hit the control panel, starting the thawing process. The fluid in the pod began to drain, steam rising as the temperature rose. A loud metallic crash echoed down the corridor. Ethan raised his plasma rifle, aiming toward the sound. The lights flickered again, then 3 hunter drones crawled into view, their claws scraping the metal floor. Sarah stepped forward, her hands glowing blue. I'll handle them. No, Ethan said quickly. You're still weak from the last fight. She smiled faintly. Then we'll handle them together. She raised her hands, energy sparking through the air. Ethan fired alongside her, plasma bolts cutting through the smoke as blue light exploded around them. The first drone fell, its armor melting. The second one lunged, claws wide, but Ethan kicked it back and shot through its head. The third drone fired a blast of energy that hit the control console. Sparks flew everywhere. Damn it! Ethan yelled. The pod sequence stopped. Sarah rushed to the console, her hands glowing as she touched the controls directly. The machines responded to her, the lights returning one by one. Dr. Ward's eyes fluttered open inside the pod. Ethan blinked. She's waking up. The pod opened with a hiss. The woman gasped, taking her first breath in years. She looked around, confused but alert. Her gaze stopped on Ethan and Sarah. "You're a human," she said to Ethan, then looked at Sarah. "And you're not." It worked. Ethan frowned. What worked? Dr. Ward smiled weakly. "The link between our species. You're the key, Ethan. You carry the trace. You can stop the gate." Before he could ask how, the entire facility trembled again, louder this time. The roof cracked, and a deep rumble came from below, like something enormous was moving under the ice. Sarah's face turned pale. "They've opened the first seal." Ethan grabbed Dr. Ward's arm. "We need to get out of here, now." But before they could move, the walls burst open, and a massive hunter unit stepped inside. It was 3 times taller than the others, its armor glowing red instead of blue. Sarah whispered, "That's not a drone. That's a prime." The prime raised its weapon, energy charging at its core. Ethan aimed his plasma rifle, his voice hard. "Then let's see if it bleeds." The sound of metal grinding filled the underground chamber. The massive figure stepped through the shattered wall, its glowing red eyes cutting through the smoke. Ethan had seen the smaller hunter drones before, but this thing was different. It was taller than a human tank, its body covered in shifting plates of alien metal. Red energy pulsed through its armor like veins. Sarah gasped softly. A prime hunter, one of their leaders. Dr. Ward's voice was weak but urgent. "You can't fight that thing head-on. It's designed to hunt energy beings like her." Ethan raised his plasma rifle anyway. "Well, it's gonna learn I'm not easy prey." The prime's voice echoed through the room, a deep, mechanical growl that almost sounded alive. "Targets identified. Human host. Energy anomalies detected. Eliminate." It raised its arm, and a beam of red energy shot across the chamber. Ethan dove behind a console as the blast tore through the floor, leaving molten metal behind. Sarah threw up a shield of blue light, but the force of the impact still knocked her backward. She hit the wall hard, her glow flickering. Ethan fired again and again, plasma bolts bouncing harmlessly off the prime's armor. "It's not working," he shouted. Dr. Ward crouched beside him, trying to access the base controls. "You can't destroy it with human weapons, but maybe we can overload it." "How?" Ethan demanded. She pointed at a glowing reactor conduit running through the wall. "That line powers the energy core of this facility. If we reroute it through the floor grid, we can fry its systems, but we'll have to lure it onto the conduit first." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we make it chase me." Before anyone could stop him, he ran out from behind the console, shouting, "Hey, metal monster! Over here!" The prime turned toward him, its red eyes locking onto his heat signature. With a roar like thunder, it charged. The floor shook with every step. Ethan sprinted toward the far end of the chamber, diving and rolling as energy blasts exploded behind him. Sparks flew from the walls. "Now!" Dr. Ward yelled. She hit the control switch. Blue electricity surged through the floor, racing straight toward the prime. The creature stepped onto the glowing conduit, and the surge hit. It screamed, its body jerking violently as arcs of lightning tore through its armor. For a moment, it looked like it might collapse. But then, to their horror, the energy lines on its body turned from red to bright white. It wasn't dying, it was absorbing the power. Dr. Ward's eyes widened. "It's feeding on it." Sarah staggered to her feet, her hands glowing. "Then we use my power instead." Ethan turned toward her. "No. You'll kill yourself." She shook her head, tears in her glowing eyes. "This thing is linked to the gate. If it reaches the surface, they'll awaken it completely." Before he could stop her, she stepped forward. Her entire body blazed with light, brighter than ever before. The prime turned toward her, its sensors reacting to the sudden surge of energy. She lifted both hands. "You want power. Take it." The chamber exploded with blinding blue light. Energy waves rippled through the air as Sarah unleashed everything she had. The prime's armor cracked, its body shuddering violently. Ethan shielded his face. "Sarah, stop. You'll burn out." But she didn't stop. The air vibrated with pure force. Her scream echoed through the chamber as the Prime finally cracked open, a shockwave blasting outward and throwing Ethan and Dr. Ward to the floor. When the light faded, the Prime was on its knees, its armor split and smoking. Ethan crawled towards Sarah, who had collapsed near the reactor conduit. Her body was glowing faintly, her energy almost gone. He pulled her into his arms. "Stay with me, Sarah." Her voice was a whisper. "Did we stop it?" Ethan looked up. The Prime twitched once more. Its core glowed weakly, but it wasn't moving. "Yeah," he said softly. "You did." Dr. Ward stood shakily. "We have to leave. That blast woke up everything beneath us." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the ground began to tremble, harder than before. Cracks split the floor. A deep, low hum rose from beneath the ice, like something ancient was awakening. Sarah opened her eyes weakly. "The gate," she whispered. "They opened it." Ethan's heart pounded. He looked toward the ceiling. Small flakes of ice and dust were falling. "We need to move, now." He lifted Sarah into his arms, following Dr. Ward through a side tunnel. Behind them, the Prime's broken body began to glow again, white light seeping through the cracks. Dr. Ward glanced back, her face pale. "It's recharging. That thing doesn't die, it resets." Ethan cursed under his breath. "You've got to be kidding me." They reached an elevator shaft. Dr. Ward smashed the emergency button, and the lift roared to life, carrying them upward toward the surface. Below, the entire chamber erupted in light. The Prime rose again, fully restored, its armor even brighter. Its voice echoed through the tunnels, deeper, colder, almost alive. "The gate opens. The void awakens." Sarah clutched Ethan's sleeve weakly. "He's calling to them, to the others beyond the stars." Ethan looked down at her glowing face. "Then we'll stop him before they come through." Dr. Ward met his eyes. "There's only one way. The main control node above the ice, it connects directly to the gate. If we destroy it, we can seal it again." The elevator doors opened, revealing the frozen surface under a sky filled with red light. The hunter ship was no longer alone, more dark shapes were descending through the clouds. Ethan stepped onto the snow, the cold wind cutting across his face. He looked at Sarah and Dr. Ward, then at the sky full of alien ships. "Then we fight," he said quietly. "For her. For all of us." Behind them, the ground split open with a deep roar, blue light spilling out like fire. The gate beneath the ice had awakened. The sky burned red above the frozen world. Columns of light cut through the clouds as the alien ships descended, their engines shaking the mountains. The air itself felt alive, humming with ancient power. Ethan stood on the ridge, snow whipping around him. In his arms, Sarah stirred weakly, her glow fading like the last spark of a dying star. Dr. Ward adjusted the power cell on her wrist scanner, the wind tugging at her coat. "The gate is beneath the valley," she shouted over the storm. "If we destroy the control node before it stabilizes, we can seal it." Ethan looked down the slope. In the distance, a massive crater pulsed with blue light. At its center stood the gate, a ring of black stone and metal half buried in the ice, spinning slowly, drawing energy from the earth itself. Around it, dozens of hunter drones worked tirelessly, pulling cables and erecting pylons. And floating above them, glowing brighter than all the rest, was the Prime Hunter, rebuilt, reborn, and waiting. Sarah lifted her head weakly. "It's feeding on the gate. It wants to open a path home for the swarm." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we close that path for good." They began moving down the slope. Every step crunched through snow and shards of ice. The wind howled like 1,000 voices crying out from the past. Halfway down, a flash of silver streaked across the sky. Ethan looked up, and his heart leapt. A small pod spiraled through the air, smoke trailing behind it. It crashed into the ice nearby, sliding to a stop. The hatch burst open, and Lyra stepped out, covered in frost, her silver eyes blazing. "Lyra!" Sarah cried. Ethan ran to help her. "You made it out alive." Lyra smiled faintly. I told you I'd never leave her. She looked at the gate below. So it's true. The Prime survived. Dr. Ward nodded grimly. And it's trying to merge your people's energy with ours. If it succeeds, the gate will never close. Lyra's gaze hardened. Then we make sure it fails. They reached the valley floor. The air was thick with heat and static as energy from the gate tore across the snow in shimmering waves. Ethan, Lyra, and Dr. Ward crouched behind a fallen metal pylon. Sarah leaned weakly against her sister, her hands trembling. Ethan pointed toward a tall spire glowing near the gate's base. That's the control node. Dr. Ward nodded. Yes. Destroy it, and the gate will collapse in on itself. Lyra frowned. But that will release the energy trapped inside. Everything within 100 meters will vanish. Ethan met her gaze steadily. Then we don't get caught. Before they could move, the Prime Hunter turned toward them. Its deep mechanical voice rolled across the valley. You cannot stop the ascension. Ethan tightened his grip on the plasma rifle. We'll see about that. The battle began in a flash of fire and light. Lyra raised her hands, sending arcs of blue energy into the drones. They shattered one by one, falling like burning snowflakes. Ethan charged forward, dodging blasts, firing at the Prime's glowing joints. Dr. Ward connected her wrist device to the node's energy line, typing furiously. I'm overriding the core. Keep it busy. The Prime swung one massive arm, sending Ethan tumbling across the ice. His weapon skidded away. He coughed, blood on his lips, and forced himself to stand. Lyra faced the Prime head-on, energy flaring around her like a storm. You hunt life, but you'll never understand it. The Prime responded with a roar of energy. The blast struck her shield, cracking it like glass. She fell to one knee. Sarah screamed. No. Her body erupted in light, brighter than before, blinding. She rose into the air, her eyes burning blue-white. You will not take my sister. The Prime fired again, but this time the beam bent away, twisting in mid-air. Sarah caught it with her hands and hurled it back. The explosion rocked the valley, tearing open the ground. Ethan grabbed Dr. Ward as the ice beneath them began to crack. How much longer? Almost there, she shouted. But someone has to manually overload the node, from inside the field. Lyra looked at Sarah, both knew what that meant. I'll do it, Lyra said quietly. Sarah's glow flickered. No, you can't. Lyra touched her face gently. You gave everything to save me. Now it's my turn. Ethan stepped forward. There has to be another way. There isn't, Lyra said softly. Take care of her. She smiled one last time, then sprinted toward the control node. Energy whipped around her, tearing her armor apart, but she kept running. She reached the base of the spire, pressed her hand to the glowing core, and released all the power inside her. The valley filled with light. The Prime turned too late. Its body froze in mid-attack, energy bursting from every crack. The drones collapsed. The gate shuddered violently, its spinning slowing, then reversing. Lyra! Sarah screamed, reaching out, but Ethan pulled her close, shielding her as the explosion consumed the valley. When the light finally faded, silence returned. The sky was gray again, the hunter ships gone, burned away by the blast. The gate was shattered, half buried in ice. Ethan opened his eyes slowly. His body ached, but he was alive. Beside him, Sarah lay unconscious, her glow dim but steady. Dr. Ward knelt nearby, staring at the ruins. It's over, she whispered. The gates closed. Ethan looked toward where Lyra had stood. There was nothing, only a faint shimmer of blue drifting away with the wind. Sarah woke, tears in her glowing eyes. She's gone, but I can feel her. She became part of the seal. Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. She saved everyone. Sarah looked up at the gray sky. Your world is safe. For now. Ethan exhaled. Then let's make sure it stays that way. Dr. Ward stood, brushing snow from her coat. There will be questions, and others will come looking. But we'll be ready this time. Ethan helped Sarah to her feet. Together, They walked toward the rising sun, leaving the shattered gate behind. The snow was quiet again, but deep beneath the ice, a faint heartbeat of light still pulsed once every few seconds. A reminder that some doors never stay closed forever.